Poor girl asks Vampire King, "Why is my mom's photo in your mansion?" Then something unbelievable. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The night air outside Blackthorn Mansion felt colder than anything Emily Carter had ever known. The iron gates behind her had closed with a deep echo that still vibrated in her chest. She stood on the long marble walkway, staring at the enormous mansion rising before her like something from another century. The building stretched wide across the hill, its tall windows glowing with warm golden light that made the surrounding darkness look even deeper. Emily tightened her grip on the small envelope in her hand. Her fingers were trembling slightly, though she could not tell if it was from the cold or from the strange feeling that had been following her since she arrived. She was just a waitress from a tiny apartment on the south side of Chicago. She worked double shifts every day, serving coffee, carrying plates, smiling at strangers who barely noticed her. People like her did not receive invitations to places like this. Yet earlier that afternoon, a black car had stopped outside the diner where she worked. A tall man wearing a long dark coat had stepped inside and handed her a simple message. The owner of Blackthorn Mansion wished to speak with her personally. No explanation, no reason, just an address written on heavy paper. Emily had almost refused. Almost. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the memory of the last words her mother spoke before she disappeared 10 years ago. If you ever hear the name Lucian Voss, do not run. Listen first. Emily had never forgotten that warning. And now she was standing outside the home of the most mysterious man in the entire city. Lucian Voss. Some people said he was a billionaire who owned half the companies in North America. Others said he was older than anyone realized. There were rumors that he never appeared during the day, and that powerful people treated him like a king. Emily had always dismissed those stories as nonsense. Until tonight. The massive front doors slowly opened before she even had the chance to knock. A silent butler stepped aside and gestured for her to enter. The moment Emily stepped inside, warm air wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. The entrance hall was enormous. Marble floors reflected the light of chandeliers that hung high above her head. The walls were covered with paintings in thick golden frames. Portraits of men and women dressed in clothing from centuries past watched her silently as she walked deeper into the mansion. Emily felt smaller with every step. The butler led her through a long hallway before stopping near a wide gallery room. "You may wait here," he said in a calm voice before quietly leaving her alone. Emily turned slowly, taking in the room around her. Every wall was covered with portraits. Generations of faces stared down from the golden frames. Powerful men with sharp eyes. Elegant women wearing crowns and jewels. The air felt strangely still, almost heavy, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Then Emily froze. Her eyes locked onto one portrait hanging near the center of the wall. Her heart stopped beating for a moment. The woman in the painting had kind eyes and soft brown hair that fell over her shoulders. Emily knew that face better than any other face in the world. It was the face she had searched for in crowds for 10 long years. It was the face she remembered from childhood mornings and quiet bedtime stories. Emily slowly stepped closer to the painting, her pulse pounding in her ears. Her voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "Mom." The portrait was not small. It was not hidden. It hung in the center of the gallery in an enormous golden frame, displayed like the image of someone incredibly important. Beneath the painting was a small silver plaque engraved with elegant lettering. Emily leaned closer to read it, her hands shaking. Hannah Carter, honored guest of the House of Voss. Emily felt the room spin around her. Her mother had been missing for 10 years. 10 years of police reports, unanswered calls, and empty leads. Yet somehow her portrait was hanging inside the mansion of the most powerful man she had ever heard of. A quiet sound echoed behind her. Slow footsteps approached across the marble floor. Emily turned around. A tall man had entered the gallery without her noticing. He moved with a calm confidence that made the entire room feel different. His black suit fit perfectly against his broad shoulders. His dark hair framed a face that looked both young and impossibly ancient at the same time. But it was his eyes that stopped Emily from breathing. They were a deep amber color that seemed to glow faintly in the soft light of the gallery. The man stopped a few feet away from her and looked first at the portrait on the wall and then at Emily. His expression did not change, but something powerful moved behind those ancient eyes. Emily felt courage rise inside her chest, pushed forward by years of unanswered questions and quiet pain. She pointed toward the painting with a shaking hand and looked directly at the stranger. Her voice was stronger this time. "Why is my mom's photo in your mansion?" The man studied her face for a long, silent moment. Then he spoke in a low, calm voice that carried the weight of centuries. "Because your mother once saved my life." And Emily Carter had just asked a question that would change the fate of the vampire world forever. Emily Carter stood frozen in the silent gallery as the words of the tall stranger echoed through the air. "Because your mother once saved my life." The sentence did not make sense. Not to her. Not to the girl who had spent the last 10 years believing her mother had simply vanished from the world without leaving a trace. Emily looked back at the portrait of Hannah Carter hanging in the enormous golden frame. The painting showed her mother wearing a dark blue dress that Emily had never seen before. Her expression was calm and confident, nothing like the tired woman Emily remembered from the small apartment where they once lived together on the south side of Chicago. Emily swallowed slowly and forced herself to look back at the man standing a few feet away from her. "If you knew my mother, then tell me where she is," Emily said, her voice trembling with anger and hope at the same time. The man studied her carefully. His eyes moved across her face as if he were searching for something hidden beneath the surface. The silence stretched for several long seconds before he finally spoke again. "Your mother did not tell you anything about me?" he asked quietly. Emily shook her head. She barely spoke about her past at all. She worked 2 jobs and tried to keep food on the table. That was her whole life. The man turned his gaze toward the portrait once more. For a moment, his expression softened in a way that made him look almost human. "Hannah Carter was not just a waitress struggling to survive," he said slowly. "She was one of the bravest people I have ever known." Emily felt frustration rising inside her chest. "Stop talking about her like she is a story from some old book. She is my mother. She disappeared 10 years ago. The police never found anything. No witnesses. No explanation. And now I walk into your mansion and see her hanging on the wall like some kind of honored guest. So you are going to explain what that means." The man did not appear offended by her tone. Instead, he stepped a little closer, his polished shoes making a soft sound against the marble floor. "My name is Lucian Voss," he said calmly. The name sent a cold wave through Emily. She had heard that name whispered by people who spoke about wealth and power with nervous respect. But standing in front of him, now, she realized something far more unsettling. There was a stillness about him that did not belong to ordinary men. It felt ancient, like a storm that had been waiting quietly for centuries. Emily forced herself not to step back. "If you knew my mother, then tell me why her portrait is hanging in your house." Lucian Voss looked at the painting again before answering. "Because Hannah Carter walked through these halls many times. She stood in this very room. She argued with me in this gallery when she believed I was wrong." Emily blinked in disbelief. "That is impossible. We could barely afford rent. My mother worked every day just to keep us alive. She was not visiting mansions." Lucian Voss slowly shook his head. "What you saw of her life was only a small piece of the truth." Emily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Then start telling the rest of it," she demanded. Lucian Voss was silent again for a long moment. The air in the gallery felt heavier, as if the mansion itself was listening to every word. Finally, he spoke in a quieter voice. "Your mother saved my life one winter night in Chicago almost 20 years ago." Emily frowned. "That makes no sense. If you are the powerful man everyone says you are, then how does a waitress save your life?" Lucian Voss looked directly into her eyes. Because the men who tried to kill me that night were not ordinary men. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. What are you talking about? Lucian Voss took another slow step toward the portrait of Hannah Carter. The golden frame reflected the warm light of the chandelier above them. There are things in this world that most people never see, he said. Wars that happen in shadows. Creatures that hide behind the shape of human faces. Your mother discovered that world by accident. Emily stared at him, unsure whether she was hearing the truth or the beginning of a very strange lie. If that is true, then why did she never tell me any of it? Lucian Voss answered without hesitation. Because she wanted you to live a normal life. Emily felt anger push back against the growing confusion in her mind. A normal life does not include disappearing without a trace. The moment the words left her mouth, Lucian Voss turned away from the portrait and looked toward the dark hallway outside the gallery. His expression changed slightly, becoming colder and more alert. Something had shifted in the air. Emily noticed it too. The quiet mansion suddenly felt different, as if unseen eyes were watching from the shadows beyond the doorway. Lucian Voss spoke again, but this time his voice carried a tone of quiet authority. You came here searching for answers about your mother. That is understandable. But the truth you are about to learn will place you in danger. Emily felt her heart begin to race. Danger from who? Lucian Voss turned back toward her, and the amber glow in his eyes seemed brighter than before. From the same enemies who have been searching for Hannah Carter for the last 10 years. And the moment they discover that her daughter has walked into my mansion tonight, Emily Carter will become the most important human in a war that has been hidden from the world for centuries. Emily Carter felt the weight of Lucian Voss' words settle over the silent gallery like a storm cloud that had been waiting for years to break. The enemies who have been searching for Hannah Carter for the last 10 years. The sentence echoed inside her mind again and again. For a moment, Emily simply stood there staring at him, trying to decide whether the man in front of her was telling the truth or spinning a story that sounded like something from a late-night television show. Then she let out a small breath and shook her head slowly. No, that is not possible. My mother was not involved in secret wars or mysterious enemies. She worked double shifts at a diner and came home smelling like coffee and frying oil. She paid bills that we could barely afford and worried about whether I had enough money for school supplies. That was her life. Lucian Voss watched her carefully, but did not interrupt. Emily continued speaking, her voice growing stronger as she pushed back against the strange reality forming around her. You're asking me to believe that my mother lived some hidden life and never told me anything about it. That does not make sense. Lucian Voss took a slow breath, as if considering how much of the truth he should reveal. Your mother wanted to protect you from the world she had discovered, he said quietly. Emily laughed once, but there was no humor in the sound. Protect me by disappearing without a word. That sounds like the opposite of protection. Lucian Voss stepped toward the portrait again. His gaze lingered on the painted image of Hannah Carter, as if he were remembering something that existed far beyond the walls of the mansion. 10 years ago, your mother came to this house for the last time, he said. She believed someone had discovered what she knew. She was afraid that the people hunting her would eventually find you. Emily felt her chest tighten, so she just left. She vanished and never came back. Lucian Voss shook his head slowly. That was not her plan. The words hung in the air between them. Emily felt a cold chill move down her spine. What do you mean that was not her plan? Lucian Voss looked at her directly. Your mother intended to return. Within a few days, she believed she had found a way to stop the people who were hunting her. But she never came back to this house. Emily stared at him in silence. 10 years of unanswered questions suddenly felt heavier than ever before. Then why did you not look for her? If she meant so much to you, why did you not find her? Lucian Voss' expression darkened slightly. I did search for her. For months. My people searched every city across this country. We followed every rumor and every trace of information. But Hannah Carter disappeared in a way that even my resources could not track. Emily folded her arms tightly across her chest. That sounds like a convenient explanation. The police told me almost the same thing. No clues. No witnesses. Nothing. Lucian Voss did not react to the accusation. Instead, he spoke with quiet certainty. There was one clue. Emily frowned. What clue? Lucian Voss looked toward the doorway that led deeper into the mansion. The night your mother vanished, she left something behind in this house. Something she said belonged to you. Emily felt her heart begin to beat faster. What was it? Lucian Voss studied her face as if measuring her reaction before answering. A necklace. Emily blinked in surprise. My mother already gave me a necklace before she disappeared. Lucian Voss' eyes narrowed slightly. Describe it. Emily hesitated before reaching beneath the collar of her jacket. Her fingers closed around a thin silver chain that had been resting against her skin for years. She slowly pulled it free and held it up so the small pendant caught the warm light of the gallery. The pendant was simple but unusual. A tiny circle of dark metal with a delicate symbol carved into its surface. Lucian Voss' expression changed the moment he saw it. The calm mask he had been wearing since she arrived cracked for the first time. That symbol should not be glowing, he said quietly. Emily frowned. What are you talking about? The pendant in her hand suddenly felt warmer against her palm. She looked down at it and felt her breath catch. The carved symbol that had always been dull and dark was now shining with a faint golden light. Emily stared at it in disbelief. That has never happened before. Lucian Voss stepped closer and his voice dropped into a tone filled with concern. Emily Carter, you need to listen to me very carefully. That necklace is not just a piece of jewelry your mother left behind. It is a key. Emily looked up at him, confused and uneasy. A key to what? Lucian Voss answered without hesitation. A power that many people would kill to control. And the moment that symbol began to glow tonight means something very dangerous has just changed. Emily Carter stared at the glowing pendant in her hand, as if it had suddenly become a stranger. The small circle of dark metal had rested quietly against her neck for 10 years. It had never changed. It had never reacted to anything. But now the carved symbol in the center was glowing with a soft golden light that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Emily lifted her eyes toward Lucian Voss, her voice unsteady. What do you mean something dangerous has changed? Lucian did not answer immediately. Instead, he watched the pendant carefully, his amber eyes reflecting the faint golden glow. The symbol on that pendant has been dormant for many years, he said quietly. It should not awaken unless certain forces are moving again. Emily frowned. Forces? You keep speaking like there is some hidden world around us that nobody else can see. Lucian looked at her with a calm seriousness that made the air in the gallery feel heavier. There is such a world, he replied. Your mother discovered it by accident, and the moment she understood what she had found, she tried to protect you from it. Emily lowered her hand slightly, but the pendant continued to glow. If this necklace is so important, then why would she give it to me? Lucian answered without hesitation. Because you were the only person she trusted to keep it safe. Emily shook her head slowly. I was just a teenager when she disappeared. I had no idea this thing was anything more than a memory from her. Lucian studied the symbol again. Your mother hoped it would never awaken. That would have meant the danger was gone. Emily looked down at the pendant again. The golden light pulsed once more. Then I guess that hope did not work out very well. Lucian turned his head toward the tall windows at the far end of the gallery. Outside, the dark grounds of the mansion stretched across the hillside under the pale glow of the night sky. When that symbol awakens, it sends a signal, he said quietly. A signal to who? Lucian turned back toward her. To those who know what the symbol represents. Emily felt her stomach tighten. And what exactly does it represent? Lucian stepped closer and gently reached out toward the pendant, stopping a few inches away without touching it. That mark is part of an ancient seal. Long ago, it was used to protect something powerful from falling into the wrong hands. Emily felt the weight of his words settle into her chest. Something powerful. Like what? Lucian hesitated for a moment before answering. A source of influence over the oldest forces that exist within my kind. Emily stared at him. Your kind. The way he said the words made the meaning clear before he even continued speaking. Lucian Voss straightened slightly, and the golden light of the chandeliers reflected in his eyes. There are truths about this world that most humans never learn, he said calmly. Creatures that have lived among humanity for centuries without revealing themselves. Emily felt the air grow colder around her. Are you telling me that those rumors about you are real? Lucian did not smile. Rumors are often distorted versions of the truth. Emily took a slow breath. Then tell me the truth. Lucian looked directly at her. I'm not merely a businessman who owns a large mansion on a hill. I am the ruler of a society that has existed in the shadows for longer than your country has been a nation. Emily felt her heart pounding in her chest. You're saying you are some kind of king. Lucian nodded once. That is the title most of my people use. Emily stared at him in stunned silence before finally whispering the word that had been forming in her mind since the moment she walked into the gallery. A vampire. Lucian did not look surprised by the question. That is the name humans have used for centuries. Emily felt a strange mix of disbelief and clarity flood through her thoughts. Somehow the idea made sense in a way that ordinary explanations never had. The stillness around him. The ancient calm in his voice. The way the room seemed to change whenever he moved. She looked down at the glowing pendant again. So this symbol is connected to your world. Lucian nodded slowly. Yes, and the moment it awakened tonight means that someone out there is searching for it again. Emily raised her eyes toward him. The people who are hunting my mother. Lucian's voice grew quieter, but more serious than before. Yes, and if they discover that the seal is now active again, they will realize something else very quickly. Emily swallowed. What is that? Lucian looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. They will realize that the daughter of Hannah Carter has finally stepped into the center of a secret that has been hidden for generations. Emily Carter felt the weight of Lucian Voss' words settle deep in her chest as the golden light of the pendant continued to glow in her hand. For several long seconds, neither of them spoke. The great gallery of Blackthorn Mansion stood silent around them, filled with portraits of faces from centuries past that seemed to watch every movement. Emily finally broke the silence with a quiet voice. So what happens now? Lucian studied the pendant again before answering. Now the world that your mother tried to keep away from you has begun to notice you. Emily let out a slow breath and looked down at the symbol once more. The glow had not faded. Instead it pulsed softly, steady, and alive. She felt as if the small piece of metal was suddenly heavier than before. You said it sent a signal, Emily said. How far does that signal travel? Lucian answered without hesitation. Far enough that the right people will feel it within minutes. Emily felt her stomach tighten. And those people are the ones who are hunting my mother. Lucian nodded once. Yes, the enemies your mother feared have been searching for this seal for many years. They believed it vanished with her. But now the signal has awakened again. Emily slowly closed her fingers around the pendant. A nervous thought crossed her mind. If it's that dangerous, maybe I should just take it off and throw it away. Lucian shook his head immediately. That would not stop the signal. The moment it awakened, the message was already sent. Emily exhaled in frustration. Of course it was. She began pacing slowly across the marble floor, trying to gather her thoughts. So let me understand this. My mother disappeared because she was hiding from powerful enemies connected to some secret world of vampires. She left me a necklace that turns out to be part of some ancient seal. And now that it has started glowing, everyone who wants that power is going to start looking for me. Lucian watched her quietly before replying. That summary is unfortunately very accurate. Emily stopped walking and looked directly at him. Then why did you invite me here tonight? If you knew this necklace was dangerous, why bring me to the one place that probably has the most enemies watching it? Lucian's expression remained calm. I did not invite you because of the necklace. I invited you because of your mother. Emily frowned. What does that mean? Lucian gestured toward the portrait of Hannah Carter. For many years, I have continued searching for any sign that she might still be alive. When my people discovered your name connected to certain records, I believe it was possible you knew something about her disappearance. Emily felt her frustration soften slightly. You thought I might know where she went. Lucian nodded. Yes, but the moment you walked into this gallery and that seal awakened, it became clear that something else has been set in motion. Emily glanced down at the pendant again. The golden glow reflected against the marble floor. What exactly does this seal protect? Lucian hesitated for the first time since they began speaking. Emily noticed the change immediately. Whatever he was about to say carried more weight than anything before it. It protects the location of something that has been hidden for centuries, Lucian said slowly. Something that both vampires and humans have tried to control in the past. Emily crossed her arms. And you're not going to tell me what it is. Lucian gave a small shake of his head. Not yet. The truth about that secret could place an enormous burden on you. Emily raised one eyebrow. I think the glowing necklace and the mysterious enemies already count as a pretty enormous burden. Before Lucian could respond, the heavy doors at the far end of the gallery suddenly opened. A tall man wearing a dark coat entered quickly and stopped beside Lucian. His movements were precise and controlled, but Emily could see tension in his posture. My lord, the man said quietly. We just received reports from the outer security teams. Lucian turned toward him. Speak. The man glanced briefly at Emily before continuing. Several watchers positioned along the northern road have detected unfamiliar vehicles approaching the estate. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly. How many? At least 3 vehicles confirmed so far. They are moving slowly, but directly toward the mansion. Emily felt her heart skip. You mean they're coming here already? Lucian's voice grew colder as he looked toward the dark windows of the gallery. The signal from the seal must have reached them faster than I expected. Emily tightened her grip around the pendant. Who exactly are these people? Lucian turned back toward her, and his expression was now completely serious. The same faction that hunted your mother for years. And tonight, they have likely realized that Hannah Carter's daughter has finally revealed the key they have been searching for. Emily Carter felt the tension in the gallery change the moment the messenger finished speaking. The mansion that had seemed quiet and almost peaceful only minutes earlier now felt like the center of something far more dangerous. Lucian Voss did not raise his voice or show panic, but the calm authority in his posture shifted in a way that made the situation suddenly feel very real. How far are they from the gates? Lucian asked. The messenger answered immediately. Approximately 1 mile along the northern road. They have not attempted to hide their approach. Lucian nodded once, as if confirming a calculation already forming in his mind. Then they are confident they will be allowed to reach the front of the estate. Emily felt a wave of unease move through her chest. Allowed by who? Lucian did not answer her question directly. Instead, he turned toward the man beside him. Inform the outer guard to hold their positions and observe only. Do not engage unless they cross the final gate. The messenger bowed his head slightly. Yes, my lord. The man left the gallery quickly, his footsteps fading down the long marble hallway. Emily crossed her arms and looked at Lucian with growing concern. You just told your security not to stop them. Lucian looked toward the dark windows of the mansion where the distant hillside stretched beyond the glass. If the faction approaching the estate is truly who I believe it is, then stopping them at the outer gate would only provoke a confrontation. Emily frowned. I thought you said they were dangerous. Lucian turned back toward her. They are, but they're also careful. They will want to speak before they attempt anything more aggressive. Emily let out a small breath. Speak with you. Lucian nodded. Yes. Emily felt the absurdity of the situation pressing against her thoughts. So let me guess. A group of mysterious enemies who have been hunting my mother for 10 years are now driving up the hill toward your mansion because of the glowing necklace around my neck. Lucian gave a calm nod. That is the situation. Emily rubbed her forehead. This night keeps getting stranger every minute. Lucian studied her expression for a moment before speaking again. There is something you should understand before they arrive. Emily looked up at him. What is that? Lucian's voice lowered slightly. The faction that has been searching for the seal calls themselves the Crimson Covenant. Emily repeated the name slowly. The Crimson Covenant. Lucian continued. They are an organization that believes the ancient forces of our world should be controlled by a small circle of leaders. For centuries, they have attempted to gather artifacts connected to those powers. Emily glanced down at the glowing pendant again. And this necklace is one of those artifacts. Lucian shook his head slightly. Not exactly. The pendant itself is not the power they want. It is the map that leads to it. Emily stared at him. A map. Lucian nodded. A map hidden within the symbol itself. Emily let out a quiet laugh of disbelief. My mother left me a secret treasure map and never thought to mention it. Lucian's expression softened slightly at the mention of Hannah Carter. Your mother likely believed that knowledge would only place you in danger. Emily looked toward the portrait again. For a moment she imagined her mother standing in this same gallery years earlier, arguing with a powerful man, now standing beside her. If my mother knew all this, then why did she trust you? Lucian answered without hesitation. Because I made her a promise. Emily turned back toward him. What kind of promise? Lucian's voice was steady. That if the day ever came when the seal awakened again, I would protect the person who carried it. Emily felt a strange mixture of comfort and disbelief. So that person is me now? Lucian nodded once. Yes. Emily was about to respond when a distant sound reached her ears through the quiet mansion. At first it was faint, almost easy to miss. But as the seconds passed, the sound grew clearer. The low rumble of engines climbing the long road that led toward Blackthorn Mansion. Emily looked toward the tall windows again. They are already here. Lucian walked toward the glass and looked out over the dark hillside. Far below the mansion, several small lights moved slowly along the road. Headlights cutting through the darkness. Lucian's voice became calm and cold. Yes, the Crimson Covenant has arrived sooner than expected. Emily stepped beside him and watched the approaching lights. Her heart beat faster with every passing second. What do they want from me? Lucian answered without looking away from the road. They want the same thing they wanted from your mother. Emily swallowed slowly. And if I refuse to give it to them? Lucian finally turned toward her again. Then tonight will become the beginning of a conflict that has been waiting in the shadows for many years. Emily Carter stood beside the tall window of the gallery and watched the 3 sets of headlights slowly climb the winding road toward Blackthorn Mansion. The engines were distant but clear in the quiet night air. Each passing second made the sound grow louder. The people inside those vehicles were coming directly for her. Emily felt the weight of the pendant resting against her chest. The golden light from the symbol continued to pulse softly through the metal as if it were responding to the approaching threat. She turned away from the window and looked directly at Lucian Voss. Earlier you said something important about my mother, she said quietly. Lucian shifted his attention from the approaching vehicles and met her gaze. What do you mean? Emily took a step closer to him. You said she stood in this room before. You said she argued with you when she believed you were wrong. Lucian nodded once. That is correct. Emily lifted her chin slightly. Then answer one thing honestly. Why is my mom's photo in your mansion? The question hung in the air between them. For a moment, the distant sound of engines outside was the only noise in the gallery. Lucian Voss slowly turned his head toward the large portrait of Hannah Carter hanging in the golden frame. The painted image of her mother seemed almost alive under the warm light of the chandelier. Because she earned that place here, Lucian said quietly. Emily folded her arms across her chest. That is not a real answer. Lucian looked back at her with calm seriousness. Your mother saved my life, and later she saved the lives of many others in my court. Emily felt her frustration rising again. How could a diner waitress possibly save a vampire king and his court? Lucian took a slow breath before replying. Because she was brave enough to stand against people who believed power mattered more than human life. Emily shook her head slowly. That still does not explain anything. Lucian walked a few steps toward the portrait of Hannah Carter and stopped beneath it. 10 years ago, members of the Crimson Covenant came to this city searching for the ancient seal that your pendant now represents. They believed someone had hidden it somewhere in Chicago. Emily felt a strange chill run through her chest. And my mother found it first. Lucian nodded. Yes, but instead of handing it over or using it for herself, she came to me. Emily stared at him. Why would she trust a vampire king with something like that? Lucian answered without hesitation. Because she believed I would protect the balance between our worlds rather than try to control it. Emily looked down at the glowing pendant again. The golden light pulsed once against the metal surface. She gave you the map to this hidden power. Lucian shook his head slowly. Not exactly. Your mother did something far more clever than that. Emily frowned. What do you mean? Lucian stepped closer to her and pointed gently toward the pendant. She sealed the map within the symbol and then gave the key to someone she trusted more than anyone else. Emily felt her breath catch. You mean me? Lucian nodded. Yes. Emily laughed softly, but the sound carried disbelief. I was just a teenager working after-school shifts at a small diner. Why would she believe I could protect something that powerful? Lucian looked at her with quiet certainty. Because she believed the people hunting the seal would never suspect that the key had been placed in the hands of her daughter. Emily stood silent for a moment as that idea settled in her mind. My whole life, I thought she left because she wanted to escape something. Lucian's voice softened slightly. No, she left because she believed that staying near you would eventually put you in danger. Emily opened her mouth to respond, but the deep rumble of engines outside suddenly grew much louder. Lucian turned toward the window again. The headlights had reached the final stretch of road leading toward the front gates of the estate. The vehicles slowed as they approached the iron barrier at the entrance. Emily moved beside him and watched the scene unfold in the darkness below. What happens now? Lucian's eyes remained fixed on the gate. Now the Crimson Covenant will request a meeting. Emily felt her heartbeat quicken. And what are you going to tell them? Lucian finally looked at her again. The same thing your mother told them 10 years ago. Emily waited. Lucian's voice became calm and firm. That the seal and the power it protects will never belong to them. Emily glanced back toward the glowing pendant around her neck, and then toward the approaching vehicles below the hill. Somewhere in those cars were the same people who had hunted her mother for years. And tonight, they had finally come face to face with the person her mother trusted to carry the secret forward. Emily Carter remained beside the tall window of the gallery as the three dark vehicles rolled slowly to a stop in front of the iron gates of Blackthorn Mansion. The engines went silent one by one, leaving the night suddenly quiet again. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the headlights turned off and the front doors of the vehicles opened at the same time. Several figures stepped out onto the gravel road. Even from the distance, Emily could tell that they moved with confidence, as if they already believed the ground beneath their feet belonged to them. She felt the pendant against her chest pulse again, the faint golden glow brightening for a brief moment before settling back into its steady rhythm. Emily folded her arms and looked at Lucian Voss. So those are the people who have been hunting my mother all these years. Lucian watched the figures through the glass with a calm expression that revealed very little. Yes, those men served the Crimson Covenant. Emily studied the scene below. The strangers were dressed in dark coats that moved slightly in the cold wind. One of them stepped forward, toward the iron gate, while the others remained beside the vehicles. He appeared to be the leader. What are they going to do now? Lucian answered without looking away from the window. They will wait until my guards acknowledge them. The Crimson Covenant prefers to appear civilized when they are negotiating. Emily raised an eyebrow. Negotiating? You make it sound like they expect to make a deal. Lucian's voice was steady. They always expect a deal. Emily looked down at the glowing pendant again. And the deal would be my necklace. Lucian nodded once. Most likely. Emily let out a quiet breath and shook her head. My mother spent years hiding from these people, and now they show up at your gate like business partners asking for an appointment. Lucian turned away from the window and walked toward the center of the gallery. The Crimson Covenant believes patience eventually gives them every advantage. They wait for the right moment, and then they try to convince their enemies that cooperation is easier than resistance. Emily followed him a few steps. And you're not planning to cooperate. Lucian stopped beneath the portrait of Hannah Carter and looked up at it briefly. No. Emily studied his expression. You seem very certain about that. Lucian replied calmly. Because I already refused them once before. Emily blinked. You mean when my mother came here 10 years ago? Lucian nodded. Yes. The Crimson Covenant approached this mansion shortly after your mother entrusted the seal to me. They offered wealth, alliances, and influence in exchange for the location hidden within the symbol. Emily frowned. Let me guess. You said no. Lucian's voice remained quiet but firm. I did. Emily glanced again toward the window where the dark figures were still standing near the gate. And they just left after that. Lucian shook his head slowly. They left because they believed they could find the seal somewhere else. Emily felt a cold feeling move through her chest. But they never did. Lucian looked back toward her. No, that is why they are here tonight. Emily stepped closer to the window again and watched as one of Lucian's guards approached the gate below. The guard spoke briefly with the man who appeared to be the leader of the arriving group. Even from the distance, Emily could sense the tension between them. What they try to force there? Weigh in, she asked quietly. Lucian's voice was calm. They will not. Not tonight. Emily looked at him. How can you be so sure? Lucian gave a faint nod toward the gate. Because the man standing there is not a soldier. He is a diplomat. Emily studied the stranger again. The man stood tall with his hands calmly folded behind his back as he spoke to the guard. So they came to talk first. Lucian nodded. Yes. Emily turned back toward him. And they already know I am here. Lucian did not deny it. If the seal awakened tonight, then they will assume the person carrying it has arrived somewhere important. Emily sighed softly, which means this mansion is now the center of their attention. Lucian answered simply, correct. A moment later the guard at the gate stepped aside and spoke into a small device on his belt. Lucian listened carefully and then nodded once. They are requesting permission to enter the courtyard for a formal conversation. Emily looked at him. Are you going to let them in? Lucian walked slowly toward the doors that led out of the gallery. Yes. Emily felt her pulse quicken. That seems dangerous. Lucian stopped and looked back at her. It is. Emily crossed her arms again. Then why agree to it? Lucian's voice became calm and firm. Because if the Crimson Covenant believes they can persuade us peacefully, they will reveal far more information about their intentions than they would during a fight. Emily watched him carefully. You are planning to learn something from them. Lucian gave a slight nod. Exactly. Emily looked once more toward the glowing pendant resting against her chest. The golden light pulsed again as if reacting to the decision that had just been made. Outside the gates of Blackthorn Mansion, the representatives of the Crimson Covenant were about to step inside. And for the first time since her mother disappeared 10 years ago, Emily Carter was about to come face to face with the people who had been searching for the secret her mother died, trying to protect. Emily Carter stood near the tall gallery doors as the distant sound of the iron gates opening echoed through the grounds of Blackthorn Mansion. The heavy metal barrier slowly parted, allowing the vehicles of the Crimson Covenant to roll forward into the long stone courtyard. From the window, the headlights moved like pale beams cutting through the darkness before the engines finally stopped again closer to the mansion itself. For a moment, the entire estate seemed to hold its breath. Lucian Voss remained perfectly still beside her, his expression calm, but focused in a way that made the air feel colder around him. Emily could hear the quiet movement of guards taking their positions throughout the mansion. The night that had started with confusion and disbelief was now turning into something far more serious. Lucian spoke without raising his voice. They will enter the main hall shortly. Emily glanced toward the glowing pendant resting against her chest. The symbol pulsed once more, brighter than before, as if the approaching strangers had awakened something inside it. She looked back at Lucian. You said they would try to make a deal. Lucian nodded once. That is their usual approach. Emily folded her arms tightly. And if they realize I am here, they will ask for the pendant directly. Lucian met her eyes. Yes. Emily took a slow breath and then spoke with sudden determination. Then let them ask. Lucian studied her face carefully. You understand that refusing them may provoke consequences. Emily nodded. My mother spent 10 years hiding from these people. I think I owe it to her not to hand over the thing she trusted me to keep. Lucian's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained steady. Your courage reminds me of her. Emily looked away for a moment before answering quietly. I'm not trying to be brave. I just want the truth about what happened to her. Before Lucian could respond, the tall doors at the far end of the gallery opened again. The same messenger from earlier entered quickly and bowed his head toward Lucian. My lord, the representatives of the Crimson Covenant have reached the main entrance. They request permission to enter the hall. Lucian nodded once. Allow them inside. The messenger left immediately. Emily turned toward Lucian again. So, this is really happening. Lucian gave a calm answer. Yes. He began walking toward the corridor that led out of the gallery, and Emily followed beside him. As they moved through the long marble hallway, Emily noticed several silent figures standing near the walls. They were dressed in dark clothing and moved with a quiet precision that reminded her of soldiers. Yet there was something different about them. Their eyes reflected the faint light in a strange way, and their stillness felt almost unnatural. Lucian noticed her glance. Members of my court, he explained. They are here to ensure the conversation remains peaceful. Emily gave a small nod. I hope the people arriving outside are as interested in peace as you think they are. Lucian answered calmly. The Crimson Covenant always begins with polite words. Whether they remain polite depends on how the conversation unfolds. They reached the large staircase that descended into the central hall of the mansion. Below them, the enormous chamber was illuminated by rows of golden chandeliers hanging from the high ceiling. The front doors of Blackthorn Mansion slowly opened as several dark-coated figures stepped inside. Emily could see them clearly now. There were 4 of them. The man who had approached the gate earlier stood in front. He appeared calm and confident as he removed his gloves and looked around the hall with measured curiosity. Lucian stopped halfway down the staircase, and Emily remained beside him. The strangers below immediately noticed their presence above. The leader of the group looked up at Lucian with a polite smile that did not reach his eyes. His voice echoed clearly through the grand hall. Good evening, Lord Lucian Voss. It has been many years since our last conversation. Lucian rested one hand lightly on the carved wooden railing and replied with controlled calm. I remember our last conversation very well. The man inclined his head slightly. Then you understand why we have come tonight. Lucian answered without hesitation. Yes, you believe the ancient seal has awakened again. The man glanced briefly toward Emily before speaking again. It appears that rumor may be true. Emily felt the pendant pulse once more as if reacting to the attention. The leader of the Crimson Covenant continued speaking in a smooth, diplomatic tone. We have come only to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement. Lucian's gaze remained steady. The last time your organization offered an arrangement, my answer was clear. The man smiled faintly. Times change, Lord Voss, and sometimes the future requires new agreements. Emily felt the tension in the hall deepen as every pair of eyes in the room shifted between her and the glowing pendant resting against her chest. The representatives of the Crimson Covenant had finally stepped inside Blackthorn Mansion, and their attention had already settled on the one person her mother had tried to hide from them for 10 long years. The great hall of Blackthorn Mansion fell into a deep silence after the leader of the Crimson Covenant finished speaking. Every guard along the walls remained perfectly still, their eyes watching the visitors below. Emily Carter stood beside Lucian Voss on the wide staircase and could feel the tension filling the enormous chamber like an approaching storm. The man leading the visitors removed his dark coat and handed it to one of the figures standing behind him. He appeared relaxed, almost friendly, but there was a sharp intelligence in his eyes that made Emily uneasy. He looked up toward Lucian again. Allow me to introduce myself properly, he said in a calm voice that carried through the hall. My name is Victor Hale. I represent the Crimson Covenant in matters that require diplomacy. Lucian Voss rested his hand lightly on the railing and regarded the man with a steady gaze. I remember your name. You were present when your organization visited this mansion 10 years ago. Victor Hale inclined his head slightly. I am pleased that my presence left an impression. Lucian answered in a tone that remained polite but cold. The circumstances of that visit were difficult to forget. Victor Hale glanced briefly toward Emily Carter. Yes, I imagine they were. Emily felt the pendant against her chest pulse again. The golden symbol seemed brighter now that the strangers were standing directly beneath her. Victor Hale followed the faint glow with his eyes and smiled faintly. It appears that the rumors were correct after all. Lucian's voice hardened slightly. You did not come here for rumors. Victor Hale folded his hands calmly in front of him. No, we came here because the ancient seal has awakened once more. Emily watched the exchange carefully. These two men spoke as if they had rehearsed this conversation many times in the past. Victor Hale continued speaking. For many years the Crimson Covenant believed the seal was lost when Hannah Carter vanished. Yet tonight the signal returned. Lucian gave a slight nod. That much is obvious. Victor Hale turned his attention toward Emily, and it appears that Hannah Carter's daughter now carries the key that her mother once protected. Emily felt every eye in the room shift toward her. She kept her shoulders straight and met the stranger gaze without stepping back. Victor Hale studied her for a moment before speaking again. You must be Emily Carter. Emily did not answer immediately. Lucian's voice interrupted before she could respond. You will address your questions to me. Victor Hale smiled again, though the expression carried a hint of amusement. Of course, Lord Voss. I simply wish to acknowledge the young woman who has suddenly become very important to our interests. Lucian's voice remained calm, but firm. Your interests are not my concern. Victor Hale slowly walked forward into the center of the hall, his shoes echoing softly against the polished stone floor. On the contrary, he replied, our interests may soon become very important to everyone in this room. Lucian raised an eyebrow slightly. Explain. Victor Hale stopped walking and looked up toward the staircase again. The Crimson Covenant has spent centuries studying the ancient powers hidden within the world your kind inhabits. We know that the seal carried by Miss Carter contains the final map leading to a place that has been hidden for generations. Emily felt the pendant warm slightly against her skin. Victor Hale continued speaking in a calm voice. The power protected by that seal is not meant to remain buried forever. Lucian answered immediately. That decision is not yours to make. Victor Hale spread his hands in a gesture that appeared peaceful. That is precisely why we are here tonight. To discuss a reasonable solution before unnecessary conflict begins. Lucian's expression did not change. There is no reasonable solution that involves handing that seal to you. Victor Hale sighed softly. I suspected you might say that. He glanced briefly toward the glowing pendant once more. But perhaps the young woman carrying it would like to hear our proposal before you refuse on her behalf. Lucian's voice grew colder. She is under my protection. Victor Hale looked at Emily again. Protection is admirable, but knowledge is even more valuable. He spoke directly to her now. Miss Carter, do you know what your mother truly discovered before she disappeared? Emily felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her voice steady. She discovered that your organization was dangerous. Victor Hale chaklet kuyutli. That is a very simple interpretation of events. Lucian stepped forward slightly on the staircase. Enough. Victor Hale looked up at him again. You may silence the conversation if you wish, but that will not change the truth. Lucian's gaze sharpened. What truth? Victor Hale's voice lowered slightly, becoming more serious than before. The truth is that Hannah Carter did not simply vanish 10 years ago. Emily felt her breath catch as the man continued speaking. Your mother disappeared because she uncovered something even more dangerous than the power hidden within that seal. The hall grew silent again as Victor Hale finished his sentence. And for the first time since arriving at Blackthorn Mansion, Emily Carter realized that the mystery surrounding her mother's disappearance was far deeper than she had ever imagined. Emily Carter felt the silence in the great hall grow heavier after Victor Hale finished speaking. His final words echoed in her mind like a door opening to a place she had never known existed. Your mother disappeared because she uncovered something even more dangerous than the power hidden within that seal. For several seconds, no one moved. The chandeliers above cast long golden light across the marble floor, reflecting faintly from the glowing pendant resting against Emily's chest. Lucian Voss' voice broke the silence first. You will choose your next words carefully, Victor. Victor Hale remained calm. His expression did not change as he looked from Lucian to Emily and back again. I have no intention of insulting the memory of Hannah Carter. In fact, I respect what she accomplished more than you might expect. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly. Then explain what you mean. Victor Hale folded his hands slowly behind his back. 10 years ago, Hannah Carter discovered the location hidden within that seal. She came to this mansion because she believed Lord Voss would help her protect it. Lucian replied immediately, "And I did." Victor Hale gave a small nod. "Yes, for time you did." Emily felt a strange tension building between the two men, as if they were repeating an argument that had begun many years earlier. Victor Hale continued speaking. But the moment Hannah Carter uncovered the truth behind that ancient power, she realized something that neither of you expected. Emily finally spoke. "What truth?" Victor Hale turned toward her with a calm expression. "The power hidden by the seal is not simply a weapon or a source of influence. It is the heart of something far older than any vampire court or human government." Lucian's voice became colder. "You are drifting into speculation." Victor Hale shook his head slowly. "No, I am describing the same truth Hannah Carter discovered when she followed the map hidden in that symbol." Emily felt the pendant warm slightly against her chest again. Victor Hale took one slow step forward in the hall. "The ancient seal does not simply lead to a place. It leads to a living source of power that can influence every creature that carries the blood of the night." Lucian's gaze hardened. "Enough." Victor Hale raised one hand slightly in a peaceful gesture. "Please, allow me to finish." Emily watched Lucian carefully. For a moment it seemed he might interrupt again, but instead he remained silent. Victor Hale continued. "Your mother reached that hidden location before anyone else. What she found there frightened her more than the Crimson Covenant ever could." Emily's voice trembled slightly. "What did she find?" Victor Hale looked directly into her eyes. "She found proof that the ancient power tied to that seal was never meant to be controlled by vampires at all." The hall fell silent again. Emily felt her mind racing as she tried to understand what he was saying. Lucian finally spoke again, his tone calm, but filled with warning. "You are attempting to manipulate her with half-truths." Victor Hale shrugged slightly. "Perhaps, but that does not make the truth less real." Emily turned toward Lucian. "Is he lying?" Lucian did not answer immediately. His eyes moved toward the portrait of Hannah Carter high on the wall behind them. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Your mother did discover something unexpected." Emily stared at him. "So he is telling the truth." Lucian looked back at her. "Only part of it." Victor Hale smiled faintly, as if satisfied that the conversation had reached exactly the point he wanted. Hannah Carter realized that the power protected by the seal could influence every vampire in existence. Emily felt her heart begin to beat faster. Victor Hale continued, "Not through force or violence. Through command." Lucian's voice dropped into a dangerous calm. "That is enough." Victor Hale ignored the warning and finished the sentence anyway. "Whoever unlocks the source behind that seal could command the loyalty of every vampire who still carries the ancient blood." The words echoed through the hall. Emily looked from Victor Hale to Lucian Voss. The glowing pendant rested against her chest like a quiet heartbeat. Victor Hale spoke again, this time more softly. "That is the truth Hannah Carter discovered 10 years ago. And it is the reason both our organizations have been searching for her ever since." Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. "Searching for her?" Victor Hale nodded slowly. "Yes, because the last time anyone saw your mother, she was standing at the entrance of that hidden place with knowledge that could change the balance of power in the entire vampire world." Lucian's voice became cold again. "Enough stories, Victor. Say what you came here to say." Victor Hale turned toward Emily one final time. "Very well. Miss Carter, the Crimson Covenant has come tonight with a simple offer." Emily waited. Victor Hale finished his sentence calmly. "Give us the seal your mother left behind, and we will tell you exactly what happened to Hannah Carter after the night she vanished." Emily Carter felt the entire hall grow still after Victor Hale finished his proposal. "Give us the seal your mother left behind, and we will tell you exactly what happened to Hannah Carter after the night she vanished." The words seemed to echo through the vast chamber long after he stopped speaking. For 10 years, Emily had lived with a single unanswered question. Where did her mother go? Now a stranger, standing in the mansion of a vampire king, was offering an answer in exchange for the one object her mother had trusted her to keep safe. Emily slowly lifted her hand to the pendant resting against her chest. The golden symbol glowed faintly beneath her fingers, steady and calm, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Lucian Voss' voice cut through the silence before she could respond. No deal will be made tonight. His tone was quiet, but carried enough authority to fill the entire hall. Victor Hale turned his head slightly toward him and gave a polite smile. I suspected you might answer that way. Lucian took one slow step down the staircase. The Crimson Covenant has always mistaken patience for power. Victor Hale folded his hands calmly behind his back. And you have always mistaken secrecy for control. The two men looked at each other across the wide marble floor like generals standing at opposite sides of a battlefield. Emily could feel the tension between them growing heavier with every second. Victor Hale finally turned back toward her again. Miss Carter, the choice does not belong to Lord Voss. It belongs to you. Emily felt every guard in the room shift slightly as the focus returned to her. Lucian's voice remained steady but firm. She does not need to answer that. Victor Hale shook his head slowly. On the contrary, Hannah Carter entrusted the seal to her daughter. That makes the decision hers alone. Emily felt the weight of the pendant against her chest. For years it had been nothing more than a memory of her mother. Now it had become the center of a conflict she barely understood. She looked from Victor Hale to Lucian Voss. One man offered answers. The other offered protection. Victor Hale continued speaking in a calm voice. Your mother knew the truth about the power hidden behind that seal. She understood that whoever unlocks, it could influence every vampire who carries the ancient blood. Lucian's voice lowered into a warning. Stop pushing this conversation further than it needs to go. Victor Hale ignored him and addressed Emily directly. Imagine what your mother discovered when she reached that hidden place 10 years ago. Imagine the fear she must have felt realizing that such power could reshape the balance of the entire world. Emily closed her eyes briefly. She tried to picture her mother standing alone in some forgotten location, carrying the same secret now resting against Emily's own chest. When she opened her eyes again, her voice was quiet but clear. If you know what happened to my mother, then tell me now. Victor Hale gave a faint smile. Information always carries a price. Emily shook her head slowly. My mother trusted me with this seal because she believed it should never fall into the wrong hands. Victor Hale raised an eyebrow. And you believe we are the wrong hands? Emily answered without hesitation. Yes. The hall remained silent for several seconds. Victor Hale watched her carefully before speaking again. Loyalty to a parent memory is admirable. But loyalty does not always lead to the truth you want. Lucian spoke again from the staircase above her. Emily, you do not need to listen to him. Victor Hale turned toward Lucian briefly. That is because you already know the truth she is searching for. Lucian's gaze hardened. Enough. Victor Hale looked back at Emily one final time. Your mother vanished because she refused to surrender the seal to us. She chose to protect it instead of protecting herself. Emily felt a sharp pain in her chest at the thought. Victor Hale continued speaking calmly. But before she disappeared, she left behind a final message. Emily's heart began to race. A message. Victor Hale nodded slowly. Yes, and that message was meant for you. Lucian's expression changed instantly. Victor Hale's voice lowered slightly as he delivered the final words. Hannah Carter's final message said that if the seal ever awakened again, her daughter must be brought to the place where the ancient power sleeps. Emily felt the pendant pulse strongly against her chest at that exact moment. Victor Hale finished speaking with a calm certainty. Because according to your mother, the key to unlocking that ancient power was never the seal itself. It was the blood of the one who carried it. Emily Carter stood motionless in the great hall as Victor Hale's final words echoed through the air. The key to unlocking that ancient power was never the seal itself. It was the blood of the one who carried it. The glowing pendant against her chest pulsed again, stronger than before, as if reacting to the truth that had just been spoken aloud. For a moment, the entire hall remained silent. Lucian Voss' eyes had not left Victor Hale since the man finished speaking. His expression was calm, but there was a sharp tension in the stillness of his posture. Victor Hale finally stepped back slightly and spoke in a quieter tone. That was the message your mother left behind before she disappeared. Emily felt the weight of those words settle deep inside her. Her mother had not simply hidden the seal. She had trusted Emily to become part of the secret self. Lucian's voice broke the silence. You have said enough, Victor. Victor Hale did not argue. Instead, he gave a small nod. Then the Crimson Covenant will await Miss Carter's decision. Emily slowly stepped down the staircase beside Lucian until she stood on the same marble floor as the visitors. The guards along the walls watched carefully, but no one moved. Emily looked directly at Victor Hale. If my mother left that message, then you must know where she went after that night. Victor Hale met her gaze calmly. We know where she went, but we do not know if she survived what happened there. Emily's heart tightened in her chest. Lucian's voice softened slightly beside her. Emily, you do not need to listen to this. But Emily shook her head. No, I need to know the truth. She turned her attention fully toward Victor Hale again. Where's the place my mother went? Victor Hale spoke carefully, as if choosing each word with precision. The map hidden in your pendant leads to an ancient sanctuary far beyond this city. It lies deep beneath the mountains of the Western Desert. That place has remained hidden for centuries because the power inside it responds only to a very specific bloodline. Emily touched the pendant again. My bloodline. Victor Hale nodded. Yes. Hannah Carter discovered that the seal recognized her daughter blood as the final key. Lucian stepped forward slightly, his voice calm but firm, which is exactly why the Crimson Covenant will never gain access to it. Victor Hale looked toward him with a faint smile. That decision may not belong to you. Emily raised her voice gently, but clearly. Actually, it belongs to me. The entire hall fell silent again. Emily looked from Victor Hale to Lucian. My mother trusted me to protect this secret, but she also left a message saying I must go to that place if the seal ever awakened. Lucian studied her face. You do not have to carry this burden alone. Emily gave a small smile that reminded him strongly of the woman in the portrait upstairs. I think she knew that already. Emily turned toward Victor Hale. I will not give you the seal. Victor Hale's expression remained calm, though a trace of disappointment crossed his face. I expected that answer. Emily continued speaking. But I will follow the map my mother left behind and discover the truth myself. Victor Hale nodded slowly. That is a brave decision. Lucian placed one hand lightly on the railing beside her. Then you will not travel alone. Emily looked at him with quiet gratitude. I hope you might say that. Victor Hale stepped back and gestured toward the doors behind him. In that case, the Crimson Covenant will watch with great interest. Because if you truly unlock the sanctuary your mother found, the entire balance of power in the vampire world will change forever. Emily felt the pendant glow once more, as if confirming the path ahead. But this time the light did not feel threatening. It felt like a promise left behind by the woman who had trusted her daughter more than anyone else. Emily Carter had finally learned the truth about why her mother vanished 10 years ago. Hannah Carter had not disappeared out of fear. She had disappeared to protect a secret powerful enough to control the fate of every vampire on Earth. And now that responsibility belonged to Emily. As the visitors of the Crimson Covenant slowly left Blackthorn Mansion and the heavy doors closed behind them, Emily looked toward Lucian and spoke quietly. Then we should begin the journey my mother started. Lucian gave a calm nod. Yes, because tonight the secret your mother protected has chosen its next guardian. And this time the truth will no longer remain hidden.